Hello, this is a video that's going to be a sample for your assignment 2. I think it's not quite a straightforward assignment, and so I figured I'd make a video with this sample. So what we're going to do here is something very similar to your fraction program, but instead I'm going to read a date in this format and output it in this format. And I'm going to use cin.peak to show you how to do that. Okay, so if you follow a similar process for your assignment, you should be able to do it. Again, the assignment is not going to test on bad data. So if I say I'm going to enter the date in this format, for the most part, the date is going to be in that format. I'm not going to try and enter characters for the month and to read integers and things like that. So the same thing with your fraction. For the most part, I would be entering only 3 formats of your fraction, which would look like this. I'll just add a comment here to show you. So sample fractions would be, make that a comment. As my assignment document says, it would be one of the 3 formats, either a whole number or a fraction like that, no space, 2/3, that's a fraction, or a whole number underscore a fraction like that. These are the only things that I will be checking for your assignment. You don't have to worry about any other formats, okay? So the same thing with the date here. This is the date that I'm looking for. The only sample dates that I will be checking is a date like this, but if they enter only one number, then I would give them an error message. Or if they enter a number like this, that would also get an error message. So these two would get error messages. If they enter sample good dates, so this is sample bad dates, sample good dates, if they enter 12/23/2020, then this would be a good one. And I will convert that to to 12-23-2020. That's my goal in this program. Okay, so in your case, all you have to do is, if it's only a whole number, then you would output the whole number. If it is like this, then you would say numerator is 2, denominator is 3. If it is like this, you would say whole number is 45, numerator 2, denominator 3. Okay, all right, so let's start here. I have a few variables. I have day, month, and year. Okay, you have to read everything as integers. So don't need strings. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this string. This reads a name from the user. You should not be using strings for this assignment. This string is going to go away because all it does is just asks the person how they are doing, and we don't need that for this assignment. You can just output a welcome message. So the only variables I have are 3 integers to be reading the day, month, and year. Just like you have whole number, numerator, and denominator should be read into integers. Our goal is to just, as we read, to read it into numbers. That's kind of how the input buffer works, okay? Not to read the whole thing into a string and then parse it. That's not what we want to do. And then I have a delimiter, a char variable, which is how the cin.peak works. The cin.peak works with a char variable. So this is to get my delimiter, which is what you will have. You will use a char variable to catch the slash or the underscore or the new line that comes after if they enter a whole number. And we'll see how to do that. Okay. So I tell the user enter a date in this format: month, day, and year. I start by reading the month because I know they are going to enter the month first. Okay, they're going to enter the whole thing, but what am I reading first? I'm trying to read the month. I'm only worried about this part, even though the user enters the whole thing when I run the program, right? So just to run ahead and show you how the program works, I'm going to run it, and the program asks me to enter the month, day, and year, and I'm going to enter it all at the same time, like that. But when I hit enter, it's going to start parsing. First it takes the month, then it checks all of the code, and as I go through, the cin doesn't read the whole thing at the same time. That's important for you to understand. Month is an integer, So cin is going to read until the integer is good. So 1 is good, 2 is good. Then the slash is not a good integer. So it's going to stop reading and it's going to take 12 and put it into month. That's where the rest of my code is going to do its work. So this particular code reads, this particular input, I should say, takes 12 and puts it into month. That's what we do here. Then the cin.peek says, okay, let me peek and see what's in the buffer after 12. So 12 is gone from the buffer. What's in the buffer is a slash. It takes that and puts it into my char variable delimiter. Then we check if that delimiter is equal to a new line. This is the new line character. It's not equal to new line. It's just a forward slash. So we are not going to go into this if. We're going to come here. And this else says if delimiter equals a forward slash. So that's where we are. We are going to go in there because that's what delimiter is. We're going to go in there and the peek, remember, does not take that character from the buffer. It only just looks at it. So we need to first get rid of that character from the buffer so we can move on to reading 23. And that's what the cin.ignore does. Cin.ignore says ignore one character or the forward slash, whichever comes first. And in this case, it's going to ignore that forward slash. So that's gone from the buffer. So now all I have left is 23 and whatever else comes after that. So we read into day. Day is an integer. So it looks at 2. 2 is a good integer. Then it looks at 3. 23 is a good integer. Then it looks at the slash and it says, oh, no more. 23, I will stop reading with 23 because that is a good integer. And it puts that into day. So now all that is gone out of the buffer. All this part is gone out of the buffer. All we have is this part sitting in the buffer. Then highlight that part. Okay. So then we go in here and I read day, right? I'm here on this line where I read cin.peek. I peek again and put it into delimiter. Okay, so that delimiter is like a placeholder that keeps reading for me. Every time I want to read the character, I put it into delimiter. So the peek takes the next character. Peek takes only one character at a time. So it takes the slash and puts it into delimiter. Then I use an if statement to check again. If that is also a forward slash, then I'm going in the right direction. I'm good. So I go into that if and say, okay, let me ignore that slash as well and read the last number into year. So 2020 is a good integer. It goes all the way to 2020, all the way till the end. And it puts that into year. And then I'm going to hit enter now in my output window here. And it goes to the cout and it prints the date in this format. Okay. None of the else was executed because this else didn't execute because we did this. This else didn't execute because we did the other else if here. Okay. Now let's step through the same code. And what if I put in a bad input? What happens? What if I just put in the number 23? And if I hit enter, what's going to happen? So we start at the top again. We read that 23 into month. Okay. So when I hit enter, it's a new line character. So let's see what happens with the code here. We read 23 into month. Then the peek looks at it. The peek looks at whatever character is there after that and puts it into delimiter. Then we use the if statement to check. And guess what was there? Was that new line. When you hit enter, this is the character that comes up when you hit enter. And so it says, oh, it is a new line. So it goes into this if and it says you need to enter more information. That's what I told it to print there. And the rest of it gets ignored. So once this if goes into effect, this else is ignored, this else is ignored, the program kind of finishes. That's it. So if you enter only a single number, so this is kind of what you want to use for a whole number. If right after reading the first number you see a new line, then you have to just say, oh, this is your whole number. Output it and you're done. Okay. Else, if you see that delimiter to be a slash, then you know that the number that you just read here is not the whole number, but it is the numerator. And you have to proceed to read the denominator and be done. So you can kind of look at it and see what it is, which is what the cin.peek does. And then you can ignore it based on what it is. Okay? Or kind of then use your if statement to figure out what's coming up next. So for example, if I run the same program and type in 12/23, and let's say I leave it there and hit enter, what's going to happen? So let's see where my code is with that. So we read into month. Here's where my code starts. If you look at it, we read 12 into month on this line, right? And let me bring that window up. We read the slash into the delimiter with the peak. So we come here, if delimiter equals new line, it's not equal to new line, it's equal to a slash. So it's going to come here. We ignore the slash. I read into day. What do I read? I read 23 into day. Then I do a cin.peak. Guess what? If I hit enter here, that's not going to be a slash. That's going to be a new line. So if you hit enter, it's going to come here. It's not going to go, because it's not a slash, it's not going to go into this else if, but it's going to come here and it's going to say, oh, this is not a slash, it's a new line. So that's what this condition is all about. And it says invalidate format, please try later. Okay, so it catches those two things. So use this example, see how cin.peak and cin.ignore works, and try to do your fractions. Something along these lines is what you need to be doing. Okay, but these are the three formats that I will test. Either a new line comes after that, which I've showed you how to check for a new line character, or a slash comes after the first number, or an underscore comes after the first number. Try it and let me know if you still have trouble.